Hello my gorgeous friends on the internet, welcome to another amazing tutorial. Today we are going to embark on a journey to unravel the workings of Flutter Background Tax. Okay, so this video is all about, we are still going to work on the auto changer, the wallpaper app that we did previously. Okay, because if you notice, if you watch the playlist, you will notice at the end I said something about creating another video because Work Manager, which I use in that playlist, did not really give us what we needed, right? The auto changing feature was not working when the app is running in the background. All right, so I decided to come up with this video, right? And I want to show you guys how I did it. If you check the app now on Play Store, you will notice that everything is working and the auto changing feature is working, right? So we're going to look at how we can implement Foreground Tax effectively while the app is running in the background, right? We'll be able to change the wallpaper provided we give it a certain interval, like from 1 minute down to 10 minutes, right? We can just specify how many X intervals we want to change the wallpaper while the app is running in the background. Okay, so for this thing to work, we are going to be using the Flutter Foreground. So using this, we'll be able to execute significant tax, okay, while the app is in the background. All right, so this package is very powerful, right? It allows our Flutter app to execute that code, right, within a foreground service in Android or a background service in iOS, right? So this plugin just it does a lot of things, right? But when we are using it, you will notice that there's a notification that pops up on your screen. Okay, so that notification, it indicates that the foreground service is in action, right? Is running. So in our case, we are going to customize it a little bit to show the user their interval and how long it's remaining for the wallpaper to change. Okay, and this notification actually helps the operating system. Okay, it tells the operating system not to kill our app process, right? So this gives us an amazing seamless user experience. So I'm not going to talk much about this. Let's just dive into our code, and I'm going to do some editing in the code, like the settings area, and then we are going to integrate the foreground tax. I'm going to show you how it works. Okay, all right, so right here now you can see we have our code and we have the everything is running. I'm currently using my physical Android device. Okay, here now you can see we just have our interval. Okay, it's telling me to select at least one wallpaper. Okay, so what I'm going to do here now, I'm going to quickly just download some wallpapers, right, to just have some wallpapers in my downloads, then we can just proceed. Okay, all right guys, so as you can see, I've downloaded a lot of wallpaper, right, to my local storage. So I have like 6 wallpapers here. So I'm going to go back now to our settings and try to select the ones I want to auto change, right, while the app is running in the background, the ones I want to be changing, right? So with this, I can go back. Okay, now I can actually select this dialog. So here you can see we have this dialog. We have 15 minutes to 60 minutes, right? So I want to update this to start from 1 minute to 10 minutes, right? In your own case, you can do it whichever way you want, because I'm going to provide the source code for you. So let's go over here, like to our settings provider. So right here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go up a little where we have our get interval list. I'm going to change this to 10, right? And also I'm going to edit this to 10. So what is happening here is that I'm going to generate minutes from 1 minute down to 10 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to save this. You can see now we have 1 minute to 10 minutes, which is more like the last one. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just to update this UI a little bit, so that I want to add like an OK button, okay, to just make this thing a little bit nice. So here, because before when we click on, let's say, home screen, right, it's going to pop this stuff. So I don't want it to be like that. I want us to have an OK button in the sense that we can select this, we can select this, and then select OK button to just close this stuff. So I'm going to quickly scroll down to where we have our show interval dialog, which is this dialog. Okay, right below here, I'm going to just below this guy, I'm going to come here, right? Let's just add like a height of 10. All right, so I'm going to remove this context.pop here, so that it's not going to pop whenever we click on this dialog on each of these buttons. And when I do that, I'm also going to call set state to rebuild the state. Okay, So watch what happens now. If I close this and come here, I'll be able to select these guys, okay? And you can see now it's not popping the widget. So next thing I'm going to do here now is just to add an OK button, okay? I already have the OK button, and the OK button, what is going to, I'm going to use using test button to generate this, and once we tap on it, it's going to pop the widgets for us, okay? So we don't need to use this because we're already using Go Router, so I can just use that pop, all right? So I'm going to save this. Let's return back. Click here, right? You can see now we have the OK button. So this OK button is only going to be called after we have selected the intervals and everything, okay? So here now I can just go ahead and select the interval to be 1 minute, 2 minutes, whichever minute we want. So let me just stick with 1 minute for this and click OK, right? You can see now everything is set, but if you notice, the interval that we selected is not selecting and this toggle is not on. And if you remember in our previous video, we were actually checking based on 15 minutes, right? So I'm just going to update these guys to be 1 minute instead, okay? So if it's less than 1 minute, that means user selected something. If it's less than 1 minute, that means the minute is 0, user have not selected anything. But if it's greater than 1, that means user have selected something. So I will just go ahead and update these guys from 15 minutes to 1 minute, all of them. So I'm going to save it. You can see now the toggle is going to be active. All right, so now we have this. You can see now when we click on it again, it's showing the 2 minutes interval. If you select it, you can see now the minute is here and it's showing 6 selected, which is all the wallpapers that we have selected. So quickly, we are going to start the integration for the work manager. The Foreground Tax, which is this package, this dependency. If you look at this dependency, you will notice that it's more like there's a lot of things here and it's so confusing. You might even get lost trying to implement it, but don't worry. And also, if you go down here, how to use, you will notice that first thing that you need to do, right, is to add your permission for Android, okay? But we also have for iOS, but in this case, we are only targeting for Android, because auto wallpaper changing only works for Android, right? You cannot apply wallpaper on iOS. You can only download. So we are not going to touch on that task. So here now we have, but it's just like a straightforward stuff, right? Just follow this scenario, this process, and also follow what I'm going to be doing in the code. You will also get the same result, okay? But just make sure you put this setup for Swift, okay? Then you'll be good, right? Nothing much. So how to use this plugin? There are two ways to start a Foreground Tax, right? We have the manual way, right, where you initialize the Foreground Tax. You can see you need to create an init method and you call it inside your init state, okay? Then you define your buttons and everything, and also the interval, right? That is one. You can also build your UI. You're going to wrap your material app or whichever app that is your starting one with start Foreground Tax, and it returns on with start, okay? You will need to return true if you want it to start immediately, right? If you return false based on some conditions, it's not going to return. You also set your Android notification, you set your iOS notification, your Foreground Tax option. This is where you specify the configuration, right? The interval, how long you want it to fire, is once event, set it to false, which is default, allow wake lock, allow Wi-Fi lock. I think there's another one again to wake when you restart your system, okay? Then you have a callback. So this callback is more like we are going to register a listener, all right? We are going to register a listener for this. You're going to see how I'm going to do that. And now we have the OnData. This OnData is fired whenever we get the results, okay? Like whenever this interval fires, it gets to this on callback. This on callback we now call return the on data, so we can now fire whatever thing that we need. Okay, so I just explained the most important things that we need to know. Don't forget, you can also request for notification for Android. Okay, right, optimizing battery and all that. I'm going to show you all this. Okay, so now let's get back into the code again. So right here now, I'm going to make a stretch. First of all, I'm going to remove every instance of work manager wherever we have it. So we already have this work manager. Because I don't want it, it's not useful in this case anymore. So I'm just going to remove it. Then whichever place that shows error, I will just quickly jump in there and then remove all the code that is relating to work manager. Quickly, I'm going to add the dependency for the Foreground Tax. Let's just register this dependency quickly. So right here, I'm just going to run Flutter pub get, pub add, okay, Foreground Tax, and it's going to register it for us. So just give it some few seconds to run. And now that we have this running, I'm going to quickly go to our manifest file. So inside our manifest file, we are going to define a permission, right? Let's go to our manifest here. Right, inside here, we're going to add this Foreground Tax permission, and which is more like what is required here as well. You can use Foreground Tax. If you want to play media player and all that, you can also specify all this media playback and every other thing, right? But we don't need those. We just want to show the notification and then be changing the wallpaper in the background. So I'll need this only. And scroll down a little bit, you will see the configuration for Android where we need to register this service, right, inside our main.dat. Okay, so this service is just going to like tell the system that we are going to be using a foreground service. So we're going to go back here, just below our activity here. Okay, I'm going to paste this line of code, right? You can see this is just simple because we don't really need much. Okay, so we just this that we need. And while you have this, you can just save it up and we can go back. The work manager is still not showing any error, so let's just do a flutter clean here and flutter pub get. So I want to see that error, so I will show you guys the instance or the places that we are using it. All right, and one other thing again, whenever you add a new plugin, right, to Flutter, make sure you kill the app and then also try to rebuild it again. All right, it's very important so that you will not have this platform exception. Okay, so we're going to do that real quick. All right, so we are going to, while trying to rerun the app, I actually got this error again, more like the work manager, the instances, the places where we were using it. So I'm going to quickly remove them one after the other. Okay, so we have this method setup work manager, which we are calling inside the settings provider. I'm going to remove it, and I don't want it anywhere. Whichever place that we are using it, we just want to get rid of everything. Okay, so we don't want all this stuff. Let's go to our main.dat. I believe we are also calling it somewhere around here. Okay, we have this callback, this top level callback. I'm going to remove it, also remove this. Okay, so now that we have everything out of the way, everything relating to work manager is completely out of our project, I'm going to go ahead and rerun this app again. Okay, all right, so I actually encountered another error while trying to run this after adding the foreground service. So it's asking for minimum SDK. So I need to increase the minimum SDK to 21 because the current one is already 19, so it's not building. So I'm going to go back to my build.gradle file still under the Android directory. Scroll down a little bit. I think this guy, I usually like changing this guy directly instead of like going anywhere. Just directly, I just change it to 21. Okay, so this is going to work for us. And once you do that, I think other thing, okay, we already have our multi-desk enabled, which is a good one. So we don't need to do any much thing there again. So let's just close this guy and then try to run this app again. So I just hope there is no warning or any other error. Okay, app is up and running. Everything is good. You can see we have everything up to date. So if you go to the settings, we can also see our intervals, the one we selected previously, right? the OK button is also working. All right. So cool. And now the next thing we are going to do now is to integrate the foreground service. Remember, we have already added the permission inside our Android manifest. We have already added the dependency, right? We also upgraded the minimum SDK version. Okay. So now moving on, we are going to go to our main.dat. But before we go to our main.dat, I need to create a services. So let's go under our shared directory. Inside here, I'm going to create a new directory called services. So inside here, what I'm going to do basically is just to create a foreground service. Okay, so this is going to handle our foreground service for us. Okay, so I'm going to have foreground service.dat. All right. So inside here, we are going to do one thing. Many things, not just one thing. Okay, so firstly, we are going to define a handler, which is our tax handler, right? That has on start, it has on repeat event, which is what we are going to work with mostly. It has on destroy, we don't really need this. We have on notification pressed, we don't need it as well. We have on notification button pressed, on notification pressed, we don't need all these methods. Okay, but we are definitely going to create this tax handler. Okay, then moving down below here, you can see here we have request Android permission. Okay, we are going to need this. So this permission is not needed if you are running Android 13 and below, right? But it's still good to have it in place in case you are targeting Android 13, Android 14, and maybe if Android decides to release another API version. Okay, you need this because till then I don't know, but as at the time I'm creating this, we have Android 14 as the maximum API version for Android. Okay, all right, so first thing I want to do, I'm going to create the notification. So here we just have okay, let's quickly grab this guy. I think we are going to be using this for that. So I'm going to grab this that we have here, request permission for Android. Okay, I'm going to come here. So I know I'm definitely going to update it a little bit. So just remove all these methods. Let's just remove all these things because they are not needed. Why did I even copy it if I'm removing? Oh, okay. There was no point copying that, guys. So, but what I'm going to do here is to have granted foreground service permission for Android. Okay, more like to check if it has been granted or not, and this flag is going to be a boolean, right? It's not going to be null. So the first thing I'm going to do here is just to create a method, like a variable actually, that takes I'm going to quickly import this. So this variable is more like a notification permission status. We are going to check the notification permission status, right, using Flutter Foreground Tax .check notification permission. Okay, so just below here, I'm going to check if the notification, right, notification status is not equal to let's say notification permission status. All right, dot let's say, guess I didn't do this properly. It's supposed to be notification permission dot, if it's not granted, right, that means the user have not accepted the permission. This is for Android 13 and above. All right, so if it's not granted, what I'm going to do is just request for that permission again. So I'm going to have Flutter Foreground Tax dot request notification permission. All right, so while we have done that, I'm going to check again, right? If the notification status is equal to granted, then I can just return true. That means the user have granted the permission, right? But if it's not, I can just return false. So once it's false, we are not going to start the foreground service. Okay, then here we can check again if it's not granted, right? We can now come down here and just return if notification status dot is not granted, we can request for it, but if it's granted, we can just return true. Okay, so this is pretty much it for requesting the permission. All right, so we're going to leave this as it is. Let's go back to our main.dat where we're going to write some logics. Okay, so quickly let's return to where we have our main.dat. all right, so inside here I'm going to wrap this material app with a foreground tax widget. Okay, So let's wrap this with a widget, and I'm going to call this, let's say, with will start foreground tax. Okay, so this with start will we start foreground tax, it has some parameters that are required. If you hover on it, you will notice that it has like a lot of it. We have on we start Android notification option, iOS notification option, and lots more. So I'm not going to type this one after the other. Let's go back to the SDK, and we are going to go to the other step. So let's just move down to where we have okay, we start foreground service. So right here, after defining the notification, we need to add this, right? You can see here it has on we start, on Android notification, it has iOS notification, foreground tax option, it has notification title, and the rest. Okay, so I'm just going to grab all these things one after the other and then put it in our code. Okay, so it's going to be like so we have this on we start. So let me just say I have all these guys. Okay, let's just copy this and go back to our code. I'm going to paste it here. A lot of errors, right? So don't worry. This guy is just a normal method. This guy is also a normal callback method, right? So I'm just going to import the Android service, import the notification priority. I think this notification priority, we can just leave it as it is, low, all of them. So we also have the notification icon. It's okay as it is. The name launcher as well. So just leave it, nothing much. So since we are not going to be working with these buttons because we are not building a media player or anything, so I'm just going to get rid of these buttons. Okay, go ahead and import for notification if you are using notification, and also go ahead and import foreground tax option. And now we are left with two errors, which is the callback to start callback, which is more like the foreground listener, and then we have the OnData. So this OnData is going to be called when there is any data available. All right. So for this interval, I only want to show this. I want this interval to trigger every 1 minute, because if you look at our intervals here, the minimum is 1 minute. So for every 1 minute, we need to trigger this foreground service. We want it to trigger. So I'm going to set the interval here, which is going to be 1 minute. All right. So, and it's always in milliseconds. So make sure you convert this to in milliseconds. You can see I passed minutes as the duration and then pass in milliseconds. Okay. So one thing you need to know, if you look at this foreground tax options, you will notice that there is another parameters, right? Another property. We have this auto run on boot, right? By default, it's false. Okay. So you might want to, like, set it to true if you want it to run on boot. Okay. But we don't want that, so I'll just leave it as it is. Okay. So now that we have these things in place, we have already defined our notification, right? To request for notification. So I'm going to go here. Okay. So remember that we are saving all these data, right? When we select the interval, we select the home and everything, we are saving them in shared preference, right? So when you're working with your background tax, it depends on what you want to run. Okay. So here we need to check on we start. We need to like tell the plugin when to start. You can set it to false. If you set it to false, that means it's not going to start, right? Whenever, no matter how you run it, it's not going to start. But if you set it to true, it's going to start. But what you want to do here is, instead of setting it to true, we want to set it based on the notification, right? If the notification has been granted, okay, we need to start the so here we have the granted foreground service permission, which is this notification that we have here, granted foreground service permission. So I'm just going to import this. Okay. So what happens here is, when we start, this is going to be triggered, right? It's going to check if the permission is granted or not, right? If it's granted, you can see it's returning true or false. Based on this true or false, it's going to tell it when or not to start. All right. So that is handled. But we want to do more things here, right? Another thing I want to do again is, for new users coming into this wallpaper app, right? Remember, they have not set any interval at that point, right? Everything is just 0. The interval is 0. So the first thing I want to do here is to get the interval state, because you're already saving it inside shared preference. So I need to await this. Okay, I need to await this to get the interval value. So let's just call our shared preference right dot get instance. All right, should be this. Okay, so right here now I'm just going to check the new, let's just call this new interval, right? The interval coming from the shared preference. So we can just say value dot get int, because it's an integer, right? And we have the key already, which is interval key. So it just depends on what you want to, the condition you want to check before starting the foreground service, right? You can use anything, but in this case we are using the interval, right? So here I can just check if the new interval, okay, if it's less than 1, that means users have not set anything, there's no interval, so we can just return false, right? So don't start it at that point. Okay, so I think I'm not supposed to use a square bracket, rather I'm supposed to use curly brace. So I'm just going to save that. Okay, so what is happening here is that we are checking the new interval from the shared preference. If it's less than 1, that means user have selected an interval, so we can just return false. Cool. So that's pretty much it. Let's keep going down. So right here now we have this start callback. Okay, so this point is more like where I'm going to create. I think I need to change one thing first. I'm going to change this to auto changer is running, like the notification title and the notification test, to tap to return to the app, and also auto changer running is running. Okay, so that's pretty much it, and we are good. So next thing I want to do now is to work on this callback. So this callback is just more like the Foreground Tax callback, which we are going to create now. So it has I'm going to go to foreground service. Let's go here. So this is where we are going to set the tax handler, all right, more like the listener. If you come here, you will notice that we have, I just hope I can find this handler, right? This is where we have a handler. You can see this method here, which is void start callback. Okay, and here we have this callback function should always be a top level function. Okay, so what this means is you don't need to put it inside any function. You need to be something that can be called anywhere in your application. All right, so I'm going to copy that and come here and paste it here. You can see in this case it's actually a top level function. Okay, but I put it inside this file. So here we have our flex tax handler. So what this means is I need to create the foreground tax handler method. Okay, so for this I'm just going to check more like the listener. You can see here we have the class first tax handler, extend tax handler. It has an event count, it has on start, it has on repeat event, it has on destroy. So let's just grab these guys, okay, the way it is. So I'm just going to make this a little bit okay. So let's come back here. I'm just going to paste this. Okay, so here now you can see we have the flex tax handler. It has been registered, right? You can see it has been registered inside this set tax handler. So here we have send port. Feel free to import that isolates. Okay, this is the method for on start. Okay, so what we are going to do here now is on start. We are going to call. We are just going to send whatever we send here. Let's say we have send port dot send. So let's say I send change wallpaper, which is more like the method name or like the port name. Okay, whatever I send here is going to be retrieved, is going to be received by this OnData, right? We are going to get the response here. So we are coming back to this, right? But I just want to show you some few things. Whenever we call send port or send is going to trigger, right? Whenever we call, once this foreground service starts, this is going to trigger the first time. Okay, then repeatedly this is going to be triggered, right? Every time while it's running, it's going to be triggered, and this send port is going to be sending back the event to the main.dat, and it's inside here, this OnData, that you will now be calling your logic, those background tags that you want to run. This is where you're going to be calling it. And here we have this on repeat event. Okay, means it's going to be calling repeatedly. And inside these foreground tax options, you can set is once event, right? You can set it to true. So if you set it to true, that means this on repeat event is not going to be fired. This one is going to be fired, but it's not really good because you want foreground service, right? So it's always good to just set it as false. Okay. All right, so going back here now, I'm going to edit this a little bit, and the first thing I want to do, I'm going to go back to this guy that I created here because I need to get the interval, right? So I'm just going to get this interval here. Let's go back one step into Foreground Tax. Remember, we already have this event count, and our interval is calling every 1 minute, and I set it to milliseconds. So every 1 minute is going to be fired. So once it gets fired, that 1 minute, right? What I'm going to do, I'm just going to do some check here. So I'm just going to remove this for now. So here I'm just going to create this. Let me get this shared preference first. I want to get the interval that we already have. Okay. So here I'm just going to check if the event count, right, which is 1, if it's greater than or equal to our new interval, right? Let's say our interval happens to be 2, right? And the event count in this case is 0, okay? If 0 is greater than or equal to 2, which is not possible, right? We can now have our x here, okay? Once it has not gotten to that new interval, we can have our s here. Then here I can just have something like Flutter Foreground Tax, okay? All right, Flutter Foreground Tax. We're going to say dot update status or update service. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is to set the notification test. It can just be auto notification test. Is going to be auto change is enabled, right? And then I'm going to have notification title, which is going to be wallpaper, right? Let's just have wallpaper here, just like the name. Okay. Wallpaper, and I plan to have like something else which is more like to show the time left and the interval that is already selected. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is auto changer is enabled. Okay, I'm now going to say like set the interval name. Let's just say do something like this, new interval. So this is going to be based on the interval that these are selected. Okay, and I will now say, let's say if it's 2 intervals, we can just say 2 minutes, right? 2 minutes interval, right? Like this. Okay, so once we do this, I'm going to do one more thing, which is to increment this event count by 1. Okay, which is this event count. So whenever the 1 minute interval gets triggered, this on repeat event gets called, we are going to increment it by 1. Okay, like this, event plus plus. Think is showing error because this is final, so we don't need to make it final. Okay, so we're just going to increment the event by 1. Okay, once we do that, this guy is going to get fired again after 1 minute, right? Once it gets fired, we are also going to do the same check if the event, which will now increment by 1, which is 2, if it's greater than or equal to new interval, which is 2, then this method will now be triggered, which is where we can now say, we can just call this guy, we can send the port back to this main.dat so that this OnData is going to get it, right? We can say send port.send change wallpaper, which is, you can do a lot of things. You can do a lot of checks here, right? Depending on the kind of background services you want to run, you can do a lot of check. Okay, so once that is done, we can now say event count, okay, equal to 0. We can now set it back to 0, the default. Once we do that, this host logic will now start again, and it will increment it by 1 just like that, and it will be going. Okay, but there's something else I want to do. I want to be able to show the time left, okay, for this guy. So I'm going to have more like a simple variable here that will subtract the event count from the new interval. So inside this wallpaper, I'm just going to have the time left. Okay, let's just say like 2 or 1 minute left. All right, something like this. Okay, so yeah, this should be enough, and now I can just save it. But we can have something like let me think. I can just subtract this by 1. Okay, cool. All right, in case we have 1 minus 1 interval, it's just going to give us the correct value. Okay, so yeah, this is pretty much it, everything that we need. We don't need this on destroy because I don't see any use for it, okay, in this case. So we can just leave the on destroy like that. So on repeat events, we are just going to check the interval from the shared preference. The event count, we are going to check if the event count is greater than new interval. We are going to send this port, right, and then set the events to 0. But if it's not satisfying our condition, we will just go ahead and update the status and then increment the count by 1. All right, so that's pretty much it that you need to do here. Nothing much. So we can just go back now one step. So if we go back here, you will notice that this guy is no more showing error because we have this start callback, which is more like this top level function here. You know, it has been called. Okay, so now it's no more showing that error. Now next to the other part, we are just going to do some other few things, which is the OnData event, whatever one needs to be called when this data gets called. So remember, this is actually returning a dynamic method. So I'm just going to create another method outside of this. So let's just create a method inside here. So we have our void method. This is supposed to be a dynamic data, right? So let's just add the data type here. Okay. So here, and I'm going to check if the data is a string, because this is dynamic, right? You can actually decide to return anything that you want. You can also go here, instead of returning send, because this is an object, it's accept an object, so you can send anything. You can decide to set a bool, right? You can decide to set integer or anything, but in this case I'm setting a string, right, just to know what we are listening to. Okay, so we're going to check if not data. I think I can just change it to data instead of value. Okay, so if data is string, so I will just check if data is equal to the change wallpaper, right? So just make sure that what you are trying to check is matching what you are returning from this port. Okay, so here, once it satisfies our case, what I'm going to do is to call await. So here now is at this point, make sure you make this a sync, is at this point that you need to trigger that background tax that you want to run. Okay, so in this case I can now say settings provider, okay, dot change auto change wallpaper. Okay, I already have this method in our previous video that we created. If you go to this auto change wallpaper, you will notice that it's getting the interval, it's getting the location, it's getting all the downloaded files, right? All these files that we already selected. Okay, all these files that we selected, and then what is happening is getting the values based on their random numbers. Okay, just generating random numbers, and then the wallpaper manager is going to get called, and we are setting the location, and then it returns true. So that's pretty much what is happening here. In your own case, it might be something different. It mustn't be what I'm doing. Okay, you need to like know why you are using Foreground Tax and the logic you want to run, why the app is running in the background. Okay, so you already have that in mind. So don't just do exactly what I'm doing. You can just think outside the box, know why you are using this plugin or why you're watching this video, okay, to know what your end result is going to be. All right, so now that we have everything in place, I'm going to save this. Okay, and one thing for this auto change wallpaper is that the first time that you're using it, you want to make sure that after selecting the interval and everything, you need to like rerun the app again, because this on we start need to be called based on this condition, right? So I'm going to set this for 1 minute interval. All right, but because I'm going to show you guys real time how this changes. Okay, so we're going to select home screen. I'm going to select OK. Okay, so for now our app is actually this. Okay, so as you can see now, I'm just going to like open our app. Let's just do a hot restart here first. Okay, so after the hot restart, I'm going to kill the app, and you're going to see that that notification is going to show up. All right, so let's just give it some few seconds. Now I've run the app. I'm going to minimize it to the background. You can also kill it if you want to, like remove it from this guy. It's fine. Now if you notice, we have a notification here, which is auto changer is running. Tap to return to app. Okay, so now let's just give it some few seconds. Okay, while we have this guy, you will notice that after 1 minute, it's going to change to another wallpaper if everything works fine. and this guy here is going to update, right, to something else, which is the new stuff we have added here. Let me go to our foreground service. We have auto change is enabled, new interval, minutes, interval, wallpaper, time left, and all that. So we're going to get this trigger. So let's just wait for 21:02 and see what happens. Okay, so I decided to wait for 3 minutes, and after that 3 minutes, I did not see this notification did not change, and this wallpaper also did not update. So I don't know why that happened, but I think what I'm going to do here is to I'm going to do one thing. We are going to update this. Let's go to our foreground service. Let's locate what's it called, our main.dat. I'm going to change this channel name, right, this channel ID to something else. Let's say like 1, right. I'm going to update it. I'm going to queue this app to be run the app again. All right, so right now our app is running. I'm going to quickly go to the settings to make sure that everything is set. You can see we have the interval to be 1. All right, so now I'm going to minimize it. Okay, and now you're going to see this notification. This notification just means that this is currently running. So let's just wait for 1 minute. Okay, you can see now it has been updated. Wallpaper, 0 minutes left. So the interval is 1 minute interval, right? 0 minutes left. So let's just like wait for it to get to 1 minute left or anything, and you can see that it's going to change. So let's just wait for it. I actually changed the first time based on remember when we called on start, we are actually calling this change wallpaper, right? So this is okay, it's expected because it's running for the first time. So now let's just hold on while we are in the while the app is not open. Let's just observe it to see if it's going to change. This is 05. Let's just wait to 06 or 07, okay, and see what happens. You can see that it gets updated, and you can see that this guy actually changed, okay, and we are getting a good result. So I'll just observe it again for 7 minutes to see what happens. I think 1 minute. Let's just 07 or 08. So let's see what happens. All right, as you can see, immediately it got to 8 minutes. We saw the change, right? It now switched the wallpaper. So this is just amazing, right? It was giving us the right. So you can go here, change it to, let's say, 3 minutes, all right? And update it. It's not going to update immediately, right? But if you go back, it's not going to update here immediately. Let's just give it some few seconds. Once it gets called, you can see now it has been updated. 3 minutes interval, 2 minutes is left because 1 minute is already gone. So 3 minutes is left. If you notice, our wallpaper has been changed because we get this guy just gets called. So you can see now it has changed to another wallpaper. So just like that, this is amazing, and you can test out the production app. You can see that it's working as expected. So Foreground service was able to give us all we needed, right, to get this thing done. All right, so feel free to explore it. Okay, explore the first method, the second method, and whichever one that works for you, you can just stick with it. Okay, so I think this is great. This is amazing. I'm so much excited to get this art. And so in my next video, I'm going to be looking at something amazing also. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and also share with your friends. You know, when you like this video, you're actually helping the YouTube algorithm to recommend it to other persons. Okay, so do not forget to do that. I will see you guys in the next video.